The next recipe I'm making in this Beetlejuice book is Jacques Lalean French onion soup. I'm not familiar with this character because it is from the Beetlejuice musical, which I have not seen. I think it's a friend of Beetlejuice, a skeleton friend. And so I'm gonna make French onion soup, which I personally have never made before. My husband has. I had all the ingredients except for this herbs de Provence. It actually was at my grocery store, and it's just a mixture of different herbs. You could probably make it yourself. You'd have to look online to see what it all consists of, but I didn't have a lot of them, and this was only like $4.99, so I think it's just cheaper to buy it already made. And of course, French bread, and it is supposed to have blah, 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 blah. I can never say this. Gruyere cheese, and I don't know if you know anything about cheeses, but Gruyere cheese is expensive, like really expensive. Like the 6 ounces I needed for this recipe was $15, and no, I'm not spending $15 on 6 ounces of cheese. Gruyere is a type of Swiss cheese, an aged Swiss cheese, and so I bought aged Swiss cheese for $3.99, and my husband says it's a perfectly fine substitution. He has made French onion soup before. He has tried Gruyere. He has tried Swiss. He says for him, and he's very good at cheese tasting, there's not much of a difference. So if you're trying to save money, aged Swiss is a good substitution. But everything else, we had the dried cherry, the white wine. So honestly, if this recipe would be very expensive if I didn't already have the majority of the ingredients, including beef stock. So first thing I'm gonna do is slice all these onions. The recipe calls for 5 yellow onions. I am using Vidalia because that's my favorite type of yellow onion. Robert's helping me slice the onions, and the cats don't realize they do not like onions. Trust me, I know you do not like onions.
Beasts.
So it definitely looks like I need a bigger pan, but the recipe calls for a Dutch oven. I don't have a Dutch oven. I'm not buying a Dutch oven. So I just know these onions need to be caramelized down, and then I will add it to my stock pot of beef bouillon or beef stock, which was beef bouillon. Anyway, so yeah, if you have a Dutch oven, cook it in the Dutch oven, but I'm gonna use what I have, and I have a pan and a pot. All right, I just added the last spice, this herbs de Provence. I need to bring it back up to a boil. I just added the onions to the beef stock, which if you would have been cooking it in like a Dutch oven, you would have added the beef stock to the onions. And so my husband is like watching me, and he's read over the recipe, and he's not impressed. This is the first time I've ever made French onion soup. My husband has made French onion soup at least a dozen times. He doesn't think anything's been cooked long enough. And I don't know. He definitely knows more than I do, but I told him I'm following this recipe exactly. Kind of feel like maybe this is like the quick onion soup. What is that the middle of an onion? We don't need that. We don't need that middle in there. The soup is almost done, and I'm toasting the bread that's gonna go on top. The recipe is for 4 bowls of French onion soup, but it's just me and my husband, so I made the full recipe. We'll have leftovers. But for the broiler, we're just doing 2. The other one.
Whoa. That went a little crazy, didn't it? There you go.
All right, I'm taste testing the French onion soup. Here's the cheese.
Is there a cat behind you?
Is there a cat behind me? Yes. Honey, no French onion soup for you. It's good. Is it the best French onion soup I've ever had? No. Kind of reminds me of what we used to get at Applebee's. It's a good recipe. Not the best. It's good though. I think the onions should have been cooked longer. But it's really good. And I think the substitution of the Swiss cheese was really good. And I was looking up another recipe when I was cooking this, and the other recipe specifically said like different cheeses you could substitute. So it's not that uncommon to be substituting cheese on these, especially in this day and age. Who the heck can afford Gruyere cheese? What do you think, Robert?
I think it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine, Robert.
I think most of the time we're getting Swiss.
You think we're getting Swiss?
Yeah,
you don't think
so.
no one's
nobody's
restaurant
paying that price for Gruyere.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got my own recipe that my mom made, so yeah, of course. It's good.
It is really good.
It's just
it is
it's
really
different
good.
than what Not as
I would do it again because the recipe, we had everything we needed except for, like I said, the bread and the spice, and now we have that spice. Hopefully we'll have other recipes that require that spice. I do love a good Swiss cheese pull. This cheese is really good. And then, you like my little red Crocs that Robert bought for me? Crocs. Not the shoe.
Not the shoe.
But these are what these are called, right? My little French onion soup balls. I'll be making a lot of soup this fall. For people who don't have dry sherry on hand, because I'm sure it's very expensive, cooking wine you can get for less than $10. But for people who don't keep alcohol on hand and don't want to, you don't have to use, it was a minimal amount. I think it was like a half of tablespoon of sherry and then like 1/4 cup of white wine. So that's really a small amount of liquid. It's really just for flavor. Will it make a huge difference if you leave it out? Probably not. Are you gonna be able to tell? Unless you've tried like 20 different French onion soups, you probably aren't gonna be able to tell. But I mean, honestly, we had the sherry on hand. If we wouldn't have had it on hand, I wouldn't have bought it. I wouldn't have bought a whole bottle just for a half a teaspoon in a recipe. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That cheese though.
It's lighter because you don't caramelize the onions.
Yeah, Robert was making a comment that the soup's not that dark, and that's because I didn't cook the onions the first stage long enough. The recipe does not say caramelize. He's used to caramelizing them, and that's when you get that deep brown flavor color, not just because of the beef stock. So it is a lighter color, but still good, still very good.